Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to this session on equal pay. Ensuring that the work done by women and men is valued fairly and ending pay discrimination is essential to achieving gender equality, and it's also an essential aspect of decent work. However, pay inequality continues to persist, and the gender pay gap, which is estimated to be 20% globally, remains unacceptably high. Participating companies of the UN Global Compact, they commit to the principle 6, the non-discrimination principles, which states that businesses should uphold the elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. This also includes that there cannot be any discrimination in remuneration based on gender. I'm very pleased to introduce our two expert speakers who are joining me today and who will share with you their insights and their experience on this topic of equal pay. First of all, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Emanuela Pozan. She is a senior gender equality and non-discrimination specialist at the International Labour Organization. And Emanuela will be sharing with us her views. She will also introduce the concepts of equal pay, of the gender gap, and give us an overview of where we are today. And she will also share with us some insights of what companies can do to prevent the gender pay gap. And then we will hear a bit more from Barbara Calvao. Barbara is the Global Head Diversity and Inclusion at Uber, and she will share with us her company's insights, the experience that Uber had on ensuring this commitment of equal pay. So without further ado, I'm pleased to share and to give the floor to Emanuela to give her insights on this very important topic. Emanuela, over to you.
Thank you very much, Greet, and a warm welcome to all of you listening to us. It's always a pleasure to be part of platforms where we have people that are very interested on issues relating to equal pay for work of equal value and more in general gender equality. So I'm also glad to talk about equal pay for work of equal value, which is, a long sentence. But very important, and it's a principle, it's a human right, labor right that was actually agreed upon internationally long time ago. And sometimes I actually feel that women and men in the 50s were much, much more able to understand what this really means that sometimes nowadays. But I also have to say that this past 10 years, I would say, there has been improvement on equal pay for work of equal value. So all these words to say what? When we say equal pay for work of equal value, that sometimes we summarize by saying pay equity or equal pay. In reality, we mean two things. From one side, we are saying that women and men need to be paid equally when they do the same job. But we are also saying that women and men need to pay equally when they do a different job, but this job is actually of equal value when it is objectively evaluated. So the first principle is kind of straightforward. We take a woman, we take a man, they do the same job, they have the same title, and most likely they will be paid the same, even though it's not always the case. The second principle is a little bit more subtle because it means that we are comparing different jobs, and on the basis of skills, responsibilities, education, seniority, efforts, etc., we evaluate, we weight these different jobs, and we see if they are of equal value. What happens very often is that it is not easy to compare jobs. It does require commitment. It does require sometimes legislation in countries. It requires companies to really want to talk the walk the talk. Sorry, and it really requires a thorough understanding of the reasons behind the gender pay gap. Now, if we look at the main reasons behind the gender pay gap, we do have education and training, because in some parts of the world, women are still less educated than men, or have less opportunities to training because they are discriminated on the basis of, for instance, their family responsibilities. At times, women have less work experience, mainly because during their life cycle, they also have to take care of the reproductive role, and therefore sometimes they drop out of the labor force to then come back. But in the meantime, they lag behind in experience. Very often, it is the gender pay gap is due because of occupational category, and actually, this is a very important aspect of the gender pay gap, because in fact ILO data show that the size of the gender pay gap changes very much depending on how women are distributed along the wage distribution. So in high income countries, the gender pay gap is wider for women at the top of the skills and earning scales. So we have a wide gender pay gap actually in women in managerial positions, for instance, up to 40% in some countries, high income countries. And then in low and middle income countries, women who are often in the informal wage employment face a double penalty, because from one side, they receive on average lower wages than their male counterparts, but they're also paid less compared to women working in the formal economy. And as I said, the gender pay gap results from compounded inequalities that women accumulate throughout the life cycle, and that sometimes are also exacerbated by multiple grounds of discrimination, such as ethnic, migration status, age, and so we see how the gender pay gap, which is also due by the fact that at times women work less hours, so part-time workers, for instance, and this as well is to combine family responsibilities. And at times, it is also because women tend to be in small enterprises where there is less level of unionization, in sectors that are less unionized. And we do see that there is a clear correlation between the the closing of the gender wage gap and sectors or companies where there is workers that are unionized. And this happens in the moment when we have collective bargaining agreements, for instance, that do look after wage, ensuring that there is no wage gap. So as I said before, just to give you an idea, um, there are some positive signs, I would say, and we have seen many countries taking steps during the past years, and even at the time of COVID, because in reality, COVID has highlighted some of the discrimination that many women face in the world of work. Uh, they have highlighted the fact, for instance, that care workers or those sectors that are related to care work, are very often undervalued. They are paid less compared to other jobs. And within the care sector, there is also an important gender wage gap. The ILO has just calculated that. I cannot give the data because it's not released yet, but it is it is important. There's an important wage gap there. So just to go back to the positive side of all of this, we have seen how countries have taken steps. In particular, we have seen, for instance, how some countries have put forward proactive pay equity laws, whereby companies need to comply with certain regulations, certain certifications, for instance, or certain reporting. We have seen how countries have, for instance, taken steps towards publishing the gender pay gap, having companies publishing the gender pay gap, having countries, sectors promoting e-wage wallets, for instance, or having countries providing penalties, financial penalties, for instance, Cyprus, Morocco, Serbia, Spain, or having countries using the labor inspection system to strengthen regulations on the gender wage gap. And we have seen also how there are countries that promote equality labels, in particular in Latin America, for instance, Panama, Chile, Ecuador, or codes of conducts or action plans. And we have seen how a lot of companies have actually, step up on the issue of the gender pay gap, and they've gone beyond the definition of women and men, so the binary definition of gender. They've actually looked at other aspects that do influence wages and that tend to put women, as I said before, being discriminated on the basis of also other personal characteristics. Um, so I would stop here in terms of discussing the gender wage gap, and I can certainly be of help after during the discussion. What I would just mention is that there are lots of initiatives to promote the reduction of the gender wage gap. And we are glad to see that certainly, we talk more about it, and this is another opportunity to talk about it. We know that companies have pledged to do more on this, and have taken it very seriously, and I'm sure that we will hear from Uber. But also to say that at international level, we have the Equal Pay International Coalition, and I will put in the chat the reference. This is a coalition that is led by the ILO, by UN Women, and by the OECD. It's a coalition that was established 4 years ago, and it was really established to accelerate efforts towards the achievement of SDG 8.5, which is on equal pay for work of equal value, among other things. So EPIC is actually, we have 50 members, governments, employers, organizations, trade unions. We also have companies, private sector, and we have NGOs, we have academia. And EPIC is about really trying to learn from each other. There's a lot of a peer-to-peer component, looking at what works, what doesn't work, what are countries piloting, what are companies piloting, and what are good practices there that can really support, can really advance work on equal pay for work of equal value. So I will stop here, and then I'm available to discuss further.
Thank you so much, Emanuela. I think it really gives a good overview and a good introduction to this topic. I just would like to invite our audience, if you have any questions for our panelists, please post your questions in the question and answer box. We will have enough time to come back to it after our two speakers, so to discuss further the topics that are of interest of you all. So, Barbara, over to you to hear some more of the Uber's experience on this specific topic, because Uber has made really some specific commitments around equal pay. So, please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm super excited to be here. So thank you so much for the invitation. Of course, my role here is share with you a little bit about our experience in terms of to do the exercise to reach equal pay. And when I'm talking about equal pay here, I'm talking about gender, but I'm talking about race as well. So, of course, if you have more questions, I can dig in and talk about this, but I'm talking about both. And at Uber, we have, of course, we wanted to go beyond that, but our commitment so far and our exercise so far, and of course, I can talk a little bit about the reasons why it's around gender and race. But give me a minute to talk about a little bit about Uber, and I presume that most of you already know Uber. But Uber is a tech company that connects the physical and digital worlds to make movement happen at the tap of a button for everyone, everywhere. So you can imagine, the challenge. So to give you a sense of the size of Uber, we are approximately in 10,000 cities in more than 63 countries. Before COVID, we had around 16 million trips per day, and around 93 million users across the globe. So this is a lot. We are across the globe and we really understand our responsibility. So given the scale and the number of people that we serve every day, one of our main business goals is to create an inclusive workplace and reflect, of course, the diversity of the cities that we serve. And I think the question here is like how, because we are everywhere. So the easy answer here, that is not easy to operate, but it's just sharing a little bit how we have been thinking about this, is by creating an environment where people from every background can thrive. And we believe that this will make Uber a better company. And this is important, not only for our employees, but as well for our customers. I think, as I showed to you, we are everywhere and we have the commitment to be there, supporting our employees, customers, drivers, and the community as a whole. But let me talk a little bit about equal pay. So if you go to Uber's website and download our People and Culture report, you will see that in 2022, women at Uber globally earn $1 for every $1 total cash earned by men performing similar job functions. In the same time period in the US, and if you want, I can explain why just in US, in aggregate, employees from underrepresented racial backgrounds earn $1 for every one total cash earned by no underrepresented peers at the same job level. So I think this is important to highlight. Here is public, and this is part of something that I want to share with you. And as I told you, we have this concern about gender, but not only. We are now looking to race, and of course, we want to go beyond that. But sharing a little bit more about our experience, I prepared 5 main insights that I think somehow will be helpful to you if you are facing challenges in terms of how can I operate equal pay. So the first insight, and this is really, really important, not only about equal pay, but about D&I overall. It's a no-going process. So it's not that you will organize and you will correct, let's say, the gap, and then the work is done. So give you a little bit more of detail. So 4 years ago, we analyzed for the first time our salary data and we made adjustments to achieve pay equity on the basis of race and gender. And since then, we repeat every year the same exercise. So I think this is really important to say and really important to share with you. So the work is never done. You need to commit to this. And every year, of course, depends of how your organization operates. You need to go back and make sure that you are doing the right thing. The second insight that I think is important to share: invite different stakeholders to the process. So at Uber, we have a diverse set of stakeholders working together to achieve equal pay, such as legal, the D&I team, and HR. And why we are doing this? Because we needed to guarantee that you are not doing a correction, let's say, but instead we are reviewing all the systems that one way or another can impact the balance. Because of course, the disparity is the result of something. And we need to correct the system to correct the impact. So that's the reason we have different stakeholders working together to ensure, to guarantee that the result of that will be a balanced result, actually. The third side, and this is related to the second one, include equal pay as part of your compensation performance process. So in every compensation performance process, and at Uber we have twice a year, the diverse set of stakeholders came together to analyze all the attributes, ensuring no disparities or gaps. And this goes, of course, to the first insights about the no-stop process. No matter the actual status, we will continue to focus on maintaining this important measure going forward. So in each part of the process, especially compensation and perf, we have this diverse team reviewing all the data, and then we make sure that we are not creating disparities or gaps in each process, in each phase of the process. The fourth insight, and we are doing this not only for equal pay, but we are doing this in different sets of our GNI agenda. We invite a third party to participate in all analysis. So at Uber, we have engaged with an external counsel to conduct real-time audits of pay outcomes. And of course, we need this not only to make sure that we are doing the right thing around the data and everything, but as well, we are doing this because we wanted to be, it's part of being challenged for someone external, that can help you to think forward and how to deal with all these topics. The last insight, and I really think that this is important, and this is related to United Nations, the WEPs, but not only. It's about governance and transparency. So every year we publish what we call People and Culture Report. And we, of course, add this type of data there. Not only we are talking about representation, we are talking about our anti-racism commitment, but we are as well sharing our data, our commitment with the community, with investors. It's part of the work that we are doing. We really want to make sure that it's public, it's transparent, and I think more than that, we can start a dialogue with our communities as well, with external organizations, and United Nations is part of this as well. So I think my role here was just sharing a little bit our experience so far with this exercise. And of course, it's a lot of work around this, but I was trying to sum up in 5 main sites from our exercise here at Uber. Thank you so much for this space.
Thank you so much, Barbara. This was really very useful. The different steps that you see from your own company's experience, that is very helpful. I see a very important and good question from Megan on the reporting, and Barbara, you have touched on that. So really the importance of also assessing, of really measuring the progress that you as a company are making on this topic. And I think also as UN Global Compact, we are moving also in that way of transparency, accountability with our reviewed communication on progress. And in that communication, we will have an indicator on equal pay, the pay ratio that we will ask companies to report on. Can you maybe also share with us, and also Emanuela, from your side, from your experience working with EPIC, with all these stakeholders, the importance of reporting and to make progress and assessing progress? Is there any recommendation that you can share, or the challenges that you also saw from companies that are participating in your companies? Can you maybe share with you what you can recommend to other companies who are making steps and who really want to assess their progress and assess the steps and the achievements that they're making? Is there anything you would like to share with the audience on this?
Yeah, of course. So this is a really good question, because I talk with different companies across the globe, and sometimes they think that they need to publish a report when they achieve a certain level of development, and that is not the case actually. We need to, and I spoke about this. So I think the report, I think that the publish the transparency, it's ensure dialogue. It's make sure that we are sharing what is important, not only about the achievements, but as well the difficulties that we have, the challenge that we have during the process. And I think we as society, we are more stronger when we are sharing this type of things, because you can ask questions, you can share what you are doing, so on and so forth. So that's the reason I think it's so important. I really invite companies to be more transparent and to share this, not only with clients, with the communities that they serve, but more than that, with organizations like United Nations. So I think this is part of the exercise, and I really like the Paul Pullman book, The Net Positive. I think this is part of the process to become a net positive company, and this is not only good for you, but this is good for society, because this raise the standard of what you are doing. Doesn't matter where you are, in the scale of 0 to 100. So that's the reason I always encourage companies to report, to be transparent. And again, at the end of the day, this will be good for you as well, for your community, for your employees.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Emmanuel, is there anything you would like to add, or?
Just to say that during these past years, we have seen very good tools that have been developed to support companies, and not just large companies, but also small companies. Of interest is the tools developed by Switzerland, by the government of Switzerland, which are also available for free. They can be downloaded, and the government of Switzerland is also available for any questions. That other governments or companies can have in implementing the tool. And the latest tool, which is called Logib 2, so they have Logib 1 and Logib 2. Logib 2 is also for small companies, which sometimes in some legislation, there's a tendency to apply this reporting requirements only to companies that have a certain number of employees, and usually the threshold is relatively high. But in reality, now there are tools that also look at small companies, and they help companies progressively. You don't have to do it overnight. It does take time. It takes commitment. It takes time. And sometimes there are companies that realize that are also men that are underpaid. So the exercise works both ways. And that's also important to mention, because what we are looking is actually the job. We're not evaluating the person. We're not talking about the performance of an individual. We are talking about that specific job. So it's a completely different mindset. And as Barbara said, eventually this is an exercise that can really bring, it can increase the reputation of the organization. It does work well on people's motivation, on the workers' motivation, on the fact that workers would trust the company and there would be less turnover. There are lots of interesting, good, positive effects that come out from the gender pay, from addressing the gender pay gap. And bottom line, I think, it's also interesting. For instance, now there are some studies that show that if an employer, a male employer, has a daughter, has a newborn who's a daughter, this new male employer would start actually seeing things in a different way. And there is a correspondence of an increase of female workers in his company of the 4%. So bottom line, it is that mind shift that is needed. And it comes with awareness, with wanting to be productive, have companies that are healthy, productive, and where there is fairness in the way wages are distributed.
Thank you so much, Emanuela. I just would like, because I see some of our people in the audience are really asking this question, and it has some votes on it. It's related to the number of years of experience, the seniority, because what we see is that also women often, because they have also to take care of families, that they have less numbers seniority in their experience. How do you see, how can this be managed, and how can we overcome this challenge? Barbara or Emanuela, please feel free to take the question.
I can just refer to a couple of things. First of all, this is one of the main issues. and it very much relates to those years that women tend to dedicate to the family, so to raise children, but also taking care of the elderly that perhaps kicks in at a later stage. And we have seen, you know, a lot of CEOs, female CEOs, actually are much more affected by, you know, the care that they need to provide to their parents rather than to their children, because the children would have perhaps already been grown. And the motherhood pay gap is actually something that particularly affects women, and that eventually accumulates. As I said before, you know, women accumulate the gender wage gap, and you accumulate it also when you retire. So it stays with you throughout your career. So here it's very important to take a particular attention, to pay particular attention to women in reproductive age, to women in making sure that they are sufficiently supported in managing and handling work and life balance, but also that, you know, companies can do a lot, and a lot was said actually in the previous meeting, where there were lots of women sharing their experience, lots of companies sharing their experience in terms of managing work and life balance, and having more men, you know, sharing the burden of care and equally benefiting from some of the policies that companies can put in place. And clearly, there's a need of a shift in minds. You know, the mindset of people needs to change. Men need to move away from the stigma of you know, taking paternity leave. For instance, we have seen that in the past 10 years, we have 33 new countries that have increased paternity leave. So this is great, but then men don't take it. So, you know, unless it is compulsory, unless it is well paid. So these are all things that by now we know, and that's the only way to act upon and help in supporting the mindset, the changing of the mindset of men and also of women. Also, women need to, you know, to change their minds and allow men to take their roles and responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emanuela. And I am very sorry we are coming to an end of our session. Our time is up, but I think we could have gone on for much more time together to discuss many more of the questions that came up. But thank you so much. What I will keep in mind is this is an ongoing exercise. There is never, companies should engage on it, keep on working on it, being transparent on the progress they're making, sharing the actions they're taking. It's so important to really keep this on the agenda, and it's really part of gender equality from the broader perspective. So thank you very much, Emmanuel and Barbara, to join me in this discussion today. And I wish all of you good continuation in the discussions on this stage. So thank you all, and hope to see you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.